Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam. Ask is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. Always Seek Knowledge is to understand more about life. Quite frankly, to be a little bit more inquisitive about yourself and life around you. Learning that life is happening for you and not to you. I think the more that we understand this and the more that we ask questions about life and kind of what's happening to us, I think we learn a little bit more, we act a little better, and certainly find ourselves, well, quite frankly, running into success a lot more often. In today's episode, we're going to speak about confidence on command and how you can activate this boldness anytime. Let's begin. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, and then it becomes on demand because it's something that you've created. You don't need to feel confident. It's when you act confident that the feeling will follow. Confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a skill set. Many of you that already have this confidence, well, it's probably something you've been working on for a while. And if you're sitting there right now saying, well, I don't feel very confident, well, let's work on a few things that can help you to find that confidence within yourself. See, I remember a time where I didn't feel, well, so confident, or maybe overconfident. I guess I should back up a little bit and say that, well, I had some mentors. And when I got into a business, long before I stepped into physically the business, I began learning more about the business. I spent about 3 or 4 months learning everything I could about real estate. Long before I even took the test, long before I was certified to make the transactions and work with people and their money, I learned about the business from others who were successful in the business. So when I stepped on that so-called meeting stage with now license in hand to make these transactions and assist people, I was more than well confident that I could do the job. But let me be forthright with you and say I was shaking in my loafers. That first meeting, I knew what to say and I knew how to act. Just going through the process, I stumbled a little bit. Now, did the client notice? Most likely not, because I was pretty sure of myself at that point. And you'll find that most people are pretty sympathetic. In fact, I found that it works sometimes to say, hey, this is the first time I've done this, or, I've only done a few of these, so I just want to double check things are right. Man, that went a long way. Even though it was my first or even my 10th transaction, I still kind of threw that out there and really got sympathy. And I'm not saying you're playing your client. I'm just saying when you're in that situation, you might find it even more comfortable to just be honest and say, this is the, first couple times I've done this. I just want to double check. Can I take a moment? And that might be just staring at the paper and gathering your thoughts and getting together what it is you're going to speak about next or how you're going to instruct your client. Maybe even a meeting. If you're doing a presentation, for example, and I've been here as well, and maybe it's just you're kind of scattered for a moment. It took a lot of events to get you to that location. Now you're there and you actually realize what it is you're doing, and maybe you freeze. Happens to the best of us. And that's where it's most comfortable for me to just say, hey, do we have a couple minutes before I have to go on? Great. I step aside, I get still, I be quiet with myself, and I gather my thoughts. Or, hey, maybe you look out the curtain. Some of these activities, I know when speaking, I've looked out the curtain, peeked out and said, wow, bigger crowd than I expected. I might need a minute before I go up. Okay, great. Do I really need a minute, or am I just gathering my thoughts? Either way it works for you, I invite you to try this. Because as you practice this, pretty soon, well, you won't have to look through the curtain. You'll just know you're ready for everything and anything. But until then, feel free to implement some of these strategies that I've shared with you, that I've done myself, to kind of get you over, well, the beginning hurdles, the nervousness. Sometimes it's even just distracting yourself when you realize everything that you're supposed to be doing. That big presentation you've been working on for weeks, and now you actually have to stand up and talk about it. You were well versed to chatter about it at your desk or even with fellow coworkers, but now you're up front with the C-suite and managers and whatnot, that you have to really convince them now. Can you do it? And you start second guessing yourself. Just take a moment to be still, to be quiet, and remind yourself, you've been working on this and you've got it. You can do it. Pretty soon, you won't have to take those steps. You won't have to pause. You'll be so energized and so full of confidence that you're just going to power through. You won't need to peek through the curtain. Take a couple moments. In fact, the couple moments that you take is actually for yourself and has nothing to do with the event. I promise in this episode, I'll give you 4 practical tools to activate confidence at will, plus the science behind, why it works. Part 1, what confidence actually is. Confidence is the ability to trust yourself in unfamiliar and uncomfortable moments, right? As I mentioned earlier, it's built by taking action and not waiting to feel ready. Remember, like I said, you take that moment, even when you're not ready, to figure out how to get ready. I know some people that I've spoke with, they have a routine where they'll be in the green room and maybe it's mumbling something or singing a song or a mantra of some kind. Maybe it's just repeating the same sentence of, you got this, you got this, you got this. I'm just laughing because I remember the one individual that just kept saying that. And it wasn't, I don't think that they had a doubt that they didn't have it, but it was just what they did. I know one particular gentleman that gets on one of those mini trampolines and just bounces and like gets his energy up. Because when he hits the stage, he wants to be in the middle of that bounce. And that's kind of the routine. And that's, not only did it build confidence, but with that confidence, it's that added pump you up. I want to bust a little bit of a myth here that it's not about ego or extroversion or even faking it. Confidence comes from you trusting yourself and knowing that what you're there to do, you're going to do. And you're going to do it well. I didn't say perfect. I said you're going to do it well. Because I can share with you that every single time isn't perfect. There's a few flaws. There's a few glitches. There's a few didn't see that coming. Didn't see, had to pivot and change maybe the rhythm or adjust something. Maybe a slide didn't show up as it was supposed to. Either way, it's not perfect. But when you do it and you complete your presentation, sales pitch, whatever it is, your meeting, when you complete it, step back, pat yourself on the back. Like I said, congratulate yourself because you did it. This simple exercise, by far, is what's going to build confidence, even faster than you can imagine. Because each time you just go through the action of doing what you know already how to do, patting yourself on the back, congratulating yourself that you did it, it's accomplished, and it's done, well, that's where your confidence starts to build, brick by brick. See, the courage has to come first. Then the confidence follows. You have to be courageous enough to stand up and to do something for yourself. Because honestly, that's who's up there is you. That's who's making the presentation. That's who's presenting the sales pitch. That's you. So you need to know a little bit more about you and believe in you and get that feeling within you that you're doing what you know how to do and you're doing it well. Again, not perfect, but you're doing it well. And you'll find that each time is more and more improvement, where things just started to go smoother. And even though there was a hiccup, you just rolled right over it like it never happened. And quite frankly, I see more of the hiccups than the audience does. To them, it was the greatest show on earth. To me, I had a few speed bumps. But that's just me in my striving to be perfect. That's why I share with you it's not perfect. But once you work on the inside, it'll naturally start to show on the outside. Part 2, the 4 tools to activate confidence on demand. See, once you build this confidence, well, you kind of want to be able to have it at access, to be able to flip it like a switch. Remember, like I said, maybe somebody comes to you in your office and says, hey, so-and-so is not going to be here today. Can we get you to make the pitch? I know you're working on the team. And you say, me? This is where being able to flip that switch and say, sure, I got it. You bet, I can do it. And you move forward. Because you know the material, you just already have that confidence inside of you and trust that you can do it. And like flipping a switch and the lights come on in a room, you are there, set the stage, and present. First is the anchor move. A physical motivation tied to confidence. Shoulders back, chin up, hands open. Train your body to shift your state in seconds. Remember, like I said, the one person that gets on the trampoline builds up their energy. Well, they were setting themselves up because they've trained where their body knows when they get on the trampoline and they're jumping around and they're getting this high energy, they're going in for the long haul. And it's going to be a while, maybe 2, sometimes 3 hours. So this is, again, the training that once you do something and you follow through, now, well, your body associates that movement with what's coming next and prepares for it. I think that's the biggest thing when people say they're nervous and get the jitters is, well, because your body doesn't know what's happening next. It knows what it's got to do, make a presentation. But what does that look like? And how's it going to happen? This is why many speakers as well and presenters will present. I recommend doing some video work where record yourself through that presentation and watch it again. Be your best critic. You'll see some of the things that, well, you don't notice from the inside, but when you're looking back at yourself, you're going to start noticing. Maybe you're adjusting your hair too much. Maybe you're touching your face. Maybe you're moving about the room. Sometimes those movements can get dizzy. And well, you don't want to do that. You want to have that stable, steady confidence. Now, of course, we can get into some other things that I can share with you about actually speaking, about where to position yourself on the stage and how to non-verbally talk to the audience. But in this particular case, you need to be still. And I'm not saying still where you don't move at all. You need to build up that rhythm. You need to build up that rhythm to a point where you know where you should be standing at each point that you're making or each statement that you're making, and to move about every other statement, if not more or less, just to use the space and use the room. Again, practice makes perfect, or at least practice makes it better. So practice moving about in the room, recording yourself. Mock up that presentation and do it several times to the point where you do your do your event, and then your sign off, if you will. Whatever you do, pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself that you did it. Now your body knows the steps, knows what you do in the pre, knows that you're doing something, and then knows in the conclusion that it's done, and your body can relax. See, the thing is that if your body doesn't know what the steps are, and you haven't practiced this several times, well, you're going to get lost. Your body's going to get confused, and you certainly are going to get stuck because you can't remember what the next thing is to say. So, practice so that your body knows from the beginning to the end all of those steps. I think you'll find that it's much more relaxing, going to be much easier, and you're not going to, well, maybe have the jitters as much. Certainly speaking in front of people, yeah, that happens to the best of us. But once you get over that, it should be smooth sailing. Evidence loop is number 2. List 3 things you've done to prove you're capable. Remember, what we write, we invite. So by listing the 3 things, like you've worked on the project, you know the research well, and you've written or read several articles about this, so you've ingested the material. This helps prove to yourself that, well, you're capable to speak about this topic. This also rewires your mind by recalling the wins from, well, previous events. Not that you want to keep score, but I think you certainly want to keep track of it. And if there's anything that you found you could improve, well, I immediately write it down. If I had a successful presentation, I still write something down. If I had a not so good presentation, and again, I'm my worst critic, so I noticed more than anyone else, I'll still write it down and congratulate myself that I did a good job. Maybe it's incorporating a slide into my presentation that I thought really would have went well with what I was explaining, but it came to me later where it could go in the topic. Little things like that, you'll start to grow, learn, and understand what you're talking about and how you're presenting it. Maybe you're presenting something a little too vague. Write that down. Say, man, when I mentioned this, I looked up and the audience really looked puzzled. Maybe a graph or a chart or just further explanation during that point would help clear up the vagueness of what you're talking about. These are small little things that you can do that will build up confidence for the next time that you make that presentation. Number 3 is your power statement. I find this to be very profound. You've probably heard in several of my episodes the power statement. This is a phrase that you create that unlocks your bold self. Remember the speaker I mentioned earlier that kind of had a mantra? They would say repeatedly the same sentence or few words. That was them getting their body ready to know what was going to happen. I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. I'm going to speak the best. I'm going to present the best. I'm going to speak the best. I'm going to present the best. By doing that, you're telling yourself what you're doing, and you'll actually start to feel the energy because your body knows what's going on and your body is going to react, believe it or not, in a positive form. And so those jitters, that adrenaline, yeah, it's going to be there. But you know why? Because your mind and body are getting excited because they know what's next. And you'll start to feel that. So don't get distracted by having your power statement and then go, man, this isn't working. I'm still feeling nervous. No, that's the adrenaline because your body knows and your mind what's happening next. And it can't wait to get there. So show them the door, get out there, and do an amazing job. I know you will. You can make statements like, I bring value. I lead with clarity. Even, I belong here. Whatever that mantra is for you, find what it is, say it with confidence, and let it be what gets you started to do what you were born to do. Be an awesome presenter and speaker. Number 4 is the micro win mission. We touched on it earlier, and let's dive in. Create small wins before those high-stake moments. Remember, Maybe a time that you went on stage and knocked it out of the park, had everybody at their feet, clapping and cheering. You had the C-suite absolutely couldn't wait until the end of your presentation to get started. In fact, they were clapping and cheering and getting a woohoo. Well, now you know you're doing it. I want you to remember those moments, because those are the moments, not necessarily that you're going to get each and every time, but know that you've done it once, you can always do it again. Some of the smaller things that you can get started with these micro wins, before you start speaking, is do little favors for yourself. Like when you get out of bed each day, make your bed. Even simply just folding the sheets up close to your pillow is coming to a conclusion. It's doing something. You're done sleeping and you're closing your bed. Maybe a quick walk to get out and remind yourself in a little bit of that energy, the great things that you're doing and how you're getting to that point of presentation. Even a checklist is handy. This creates momentum. I know during and before my presentation, I like to build that energy up as well, because I want to go out there and I want to be on fire. I'll tell you a little bit of confidence as well. Each time you go to a meeting or a speaking event or presentation, you want to build up your energy. I know this goes into another class and a little bit more depth, but I think it's worth mentioning here. Bring your energy up and then dial it back once you're out and presenting as you start to feel the room, but just bring it back a little. For instance, maybe the room is here and you show up and bring your energy here. You just want to dial it a little bit, but keep that gap between the audience and yourself. Don't come down, just adjust a little bit. It's kind of a give and take. So as you bring it down, keeping that energy, the audience should come up to you and or at least get closer. That way you're not sacrificing too much. Tip from the speaking world, because I can share with you, is that if you go out and start to read the room, or you're in the middle of a presentation and they're down here, and you bring yourself down, and through your energy and conviction and knowledge base on what you're speaking about and presenting about, and all of a sudden their energy comes up and you're down here, you're busy speaking. You don't have the ability to bring yourself up. I can tell you, it just doesn't happen. So just bring yourself a little bit, let them meet you, because you need to keep your energy up there and focus on what you're presenting, what you're speaking about. And that's where your confidence is in play. But when you come down to their level and then you have to pause to figure out where they're at in energy level to be able to meet them, well, guess what? It's going to break your confidence, because then you'll be busy trying to bring up your energy while you're still trying to talk about the thing, that you're supposed to know about. And it's just not a good balancing act. You'll find that all of a sudden you're doing things that your body and mind didn't plan to do. But if you repeatedly bring yourself only to that level that you say, here's my mark, here's my low mark, then you know you're coming here, they're going to come up. And they may not come up. There's also that case too. But by you just bringing your energy just a little bit down, invites them that it's safe to come up. And if they don't, so be it. Again, you presented your best. And when you're done with that presentation or speech and you walk off that stage or walk out of that room, you know you left it on fire. And maybe it's a topic that just doesn't bring energy. But still, with your passion, sometimes you got to just leave all that right there on the table and let it smolder. You can't always expect the audience to come up to your energy. And I'm sure with certain subjects, it's just not going to happen. I know when speaking about insurance, it's tough to get excited about insurance. It's really a non-event kind of conversation. And, once you get through all the explaining, it's kind of boring. Nonetheless, I digress. Part 3, when confidence wavers. It's normal to lose it. Just remember it's not permanent. And remember, as I always say, it's practice. If you only make one presentation a year, well, I can share with you that it's probably going to take a little bit of work each time to get back to that level of confidence, to find yourself back in that avenue where you belong. I understand. Maybe this is a good opportunity for you to maybe investigate what other types of presentations that you could incorporate. You know, if you're already up at the C-suite, or if you're working with the C-suite and you're making one presentation a year, speak with a few individuals and see if there might be an opportunity that you can have more than one presentation per year. Maybe even express you're open to other options, but you just love presenting, and share with them the confidence that you already have that you can gain knowledge on anything and speak about it well. These repetitive opportunities that you have of speaking, well, quite frankly, that's going to build your confidence so you don't lose it as much. I kind of equate it to my golf game. You know, I'm in the upper Midwest, and it's a seasonal game. It's a little disappointing when the spring flowers come out and I start swinging the clubs, and guess what? Just didn't play the way I did when the leaves were falling in the fall. So it's a bit of a learning curve, and it takes a few times out on the green to all of a sudden start getting my swing back, and there I am. I know there's some options, like I suggested, where I could probably head south for the winter and be able to play year round and never miss a beat. That's all I'm sharing with you, is try to be as consistent as possible. And even if it's quarterly, you'll find that even 4 times a year is much better than 1. You want to anchor back into action. This is with body, breath, and your movement. I can tell you again that if you're not practicing continuously, you'll find yourself, well, not making those body moves as you should, or having body control. Again, how to work the room, how to work the audience, how to communicate with each and every member in the room at a different time, specifically about anything, catching their attention. Because most people really don't care what it is that you're saying. It's more about how you're making them feel. So if you can make that eye contact, and I know this is confidence as well, is you need to be confident to make that eye contact and connect with that individual, whether it's somebody you know or even a stranger, but that you make eye contact and you almost get that nonverbal nod, like I see you. That's gold. And you can do that throughout your presentation to every person in the room. Well, now you're making a connection. And now through that connection, you're starting to anchor in how they're going to feel. So even though they might not understand what it is you're saying, if it's an in-depth presentation about something that's new to them, well, they're at least going to feel good and feel, well, like they know you. And no matter what it is that you're talking about, they would be safe to learn and understand more from someone like you because they connected. Again, this confidence can maintain itself, ironically, through your breath. If you're constantly winded while you're trying to make a statement, well, that can be difficult to get your point across if you're stopping and having to breathe again. That's why I said again, keep your energy up and keep this practice up. Your movement, same thing. Know your patterns and know when you're making statements to follow those patterns. And again, it's the mind, brain, repetitive nature that almost no matter what you're talking about, you know at this point and at this point and at this point, you're making your statements. And then you're coming back around. So no matter what it is that you're talking about, you have your first point and you stand. You have your second point and you stand. You have your third point and you stand. Again, this gets into some of the stage teaching that I offer, and I believe we touched on it in another episode. But once your mind and body know that in this position is your first point, and in this position is your second point, and in this position is your third point, well, when you come back around to a new subject or a new section, if you will, of your presentation, you know that as you walk back there, the audience can now start to understand, oh, they're back in a familiar spot. And you're giving them point one again on a new topic, and point two, and point three. Again, by doing this, the audience begins to now see your behavior and develop a level of trust because they see and get comfortable with your performance, whether they realize it or not. Whereas if you're just kind of all over the room and out of breath, they're going to get confused. And they're going to, quite frankly, get more dizzy watching you in confusion than actually listening to what it is that you're saying. So part of this confidence is to not rush it and to be calm, to make your point and to pause. Make a point and pause. Make a point and pause. Almost like walking in the park. And as you practice each one of these steps that you're going through, again, you want to practice before the formal presentation and maybe even afterwards. If you want to practice again, just to be like, hey, I think I missed a step. Let me make sure and practice that missed step even after post presentation, just so that you're connecting your mind and body to this new rhythm that you've found and you've discovered. Don't wait until your next presentation and then say, what was that extra step I thought I should put in play? By doing it immediately, you're almost going to, for sure, instill that position. And that you'll not do whatever it is you didn't want to do, and you're performing this new habit now. Maybe even write it down. Because remember, what we write, we do invite. See, confidence isn't loud. It's alignment. It's alignment with what you're saying, how you're saying it, and the movements you're making while you're saying it. Those pauses in between, well, they're important because it's giving the audience a moment to absorb what it is you're speaking about. And if you're just rambling on and talking about something and they're just you're going to lose them because they can't keep up with your rhythm and energy. See how practice is really going to be important here? Because not only are you going to have high energy, but this high energy, you're going to have to also pace yourself, much like a marathon runner. You know, they don't start out with the sprint, just that casual run, and they're running. And they're going to get through the entire race with that same pace and that same run because it's their run. It's what they've practiced many times. You know, I remember one time that I fell out of sequence and I grabbed a file with some papers and it was the wrong file. And I panicked. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I came here absolutely prepared. Everything, I grabbed the wrong folder. Luckily, and I learned this early on, is that I always had an extra folder in my briefcase of those documents. So I was able to pivot and take a moment to not only congratulate myself for the emergency folder, but also scold myself for bringing the wrong folder. And how on earth could I have put it in the location that I picked it up? And, well, it wasn't for that meeting. And I calmly took a moment and thumbed through the new folder, the emergency folder. Breathing calmly and skimming through every single page in the folder. Now, it might have been slightly awkward. I wasn't paying attention. I was busy getting myself back together. And really didn't even notice if the client noticed And they might have even been talking to them. I just completely zoned them out, sitting right there at the table with them. We were going to sign documents. We were going to move forward. And I thumbed through those pages, and I remember kind of skimming through them and had the folder in front of me, if you will. And when I was ready, and it took a minute or two, but when I was ready, that I took the folder and I placed it down on the table and I said, okay, let's get started. Now that's what I would always say. But I didn't say, let's get started until I had the folder and I set it down. So you can see there was a little bit of a glitch in my normal presentation when I realized I had the wrong folder. And I had another client's folder with already signed documents. So it wasn't even stuff that, well, I could use. Now, granted, the folder that I had prepared had many of the things we already discussed already typed out, because some of the basic information I already put. So it was a little longer meeting than I anticipated, and I had to put all this stuff in by hand because it wasn't already typeset into the documentation. So to me, it just wasn't clean paperwork. I honestly don't think the client realized I know what I did. I was horrified by what I did, and it was a glitch in the meeting. But like I said, I learned to keep an emergency folder of just basic blank documents that I'd use almost in any transaction. That way I knew, well, quite frankly, I didn't know. Many of the times I would use this emergency folder when somebody said, hey, do you have paperwork with you today? Let's get started. Oh my gosh, that's my line. And yes, I do have that paperwork. Because I remember one time when someone said, hey, I'd love to do this today before I leave town. And I said, oh, I don't have any paper. Can we do this? And it got messy. So part of what I learned is to always be prepared and have some level of blank documents available to always be able to make that transaction for my client. So that being said, when I thumbed through, took my time to gather up my thoughts and get my peace and get myself away from that panic of, oh no, I didn't have what I was supposed to have, and then said, let's get started, I went into my sales mode and just started filling things out like this is the way we always do it. I don't know that the client didn't ever do business with me before, so they didn't know that I already had things typeset, and that's the way I prefer to do it. They didn't know. So what you think might be something that is difficult, your client honestly doesn't know. And in a presentation, if you missed a sentence or a statement, unless somebody said, oh, I'm sorry, could you fill me in a little bit more about the information regarding this? Well, then you're going to answer the question and fill it in. But if it's something about, well, I forgot to share with them the little part about the widget. Well, if the widget was a small part of the presentation, it probably didn't matter. And it's bothering you more about forgetting the widget than it did about them. Because if the widget was important, they certainly would have said, oh, could you elaborate more on the widget, please? And you could tell them. So don't beat yourself up too bad. Keep building this confidence within yourself. Just like I did, having that folder, taking a moment to breathe in, breathe out, and just examine the documents to ensure everything was right, like I normally would with the typeset documents. Once you start to build this level of confidence and know that even the slightest loss of that confidence can always be regained by just taking a few moments to reflect, to refine, to regroup, and to be ready. Whatever that statement is, let's get started. Let's get going. So we're going to do this today. Whatever that statement is, when you're ready, you utter your statement and you begin each and every time. Again, your mind and body loves repetition. And when it hears those beautiful words, it knows what's going to happen next. In closing, confidence is a decision, not a feeling. Remember, you decide to feel confident. It just doesn't magically happen. You can activate this with the anchors, evidence, power language, and your micro movements. Resist this strategy before a big event, hard days, or even bold asks. And you'll find that that confidence will uproot itself and show up like a blossoming tree or flower right there exactly when you need it. I invite you to download the Confidence Activator Sheet, to choose one tool and test it this week in a bold moment that you may encounter. Tag at AskAdamLive with hashtag confidence on command and share your story. Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being prepared to show up as you, even when it's hard. Now let us all go out, build confidence, and make it a great day.